I can, yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone. How we doing this fine Saturday afternoon, night, morning, wherever you are? We're going to get this show started here in a minute or two. I'm just setting up some stream stuff, lowering some music, making sure I've got some stuff pulled up. We've got a really fun show today. Hello, B. Baker. Hail Lou. Hail you. Hi there, Matthew Campbell. Okay, so yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. And we've got our good buddy, Rather Be Squidding, is in the house. Yeah, a lot has happened, and we missed the first Tuesday of the month, and now we gotta cram everything in. Rather, what's your heart out today?
I gotta be out by about 7.
Okay, all right, out by about 7, baby. All right, so let's get this show started. Let's do this. All right, let's switch the main camera. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews. I am your host, Luis Jimenez, actor extraordinaire, and host and lover of discussion of weird things. So yeah, anyway, let's there we go. Perfect. All right, let's bring up our buddy. Oh no, that's the wrong, you know what, man? There we go. Rather, we're shaking, pal.
Hey, Lou.
How you doing?
Not a lot, just trying to stay cool out here in Seattle, and yeah, enjoying life and trying to see what all this weirdness in the UFO community is all about.
Oh, well, you know, we're not going to figure out any sort of weirdness at all in this community. It's too weird, man.
Yeah, I mean, well,
it's got a little.
I have some
weird.
hunches.
Yeah, well, I've got some hunches too, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about because a lot of stuff has happened to you here in the last month or so, and nobody's actually gotten your opinion on it yet, as far as like face-to-face opinion on it, and we've had some conversations about it behind the scenes, but I mean, okay, so I guess, where do you want to start with this? Rather, like, how did this? So it happened off of a theory that Ross Coulthart had put out there, right? And the theory was something along the lines, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, if you see these things, you might be on the spectrum, you might be autistic, you might be, like Gary Nolan is suggesting in his study, every time, somebody asks him, okay, like, where's the scientific evidence? And he, cites this paper that he wrote, and the paper is essentially saying schizophrenic, adult autism, and autistic people could be more prone in certain parts of the brain to create these visions or hallucinations, or are they hallucinations? So you commented on that, and go for it.
Well,
Yeah,
well, so yeah. Well, so I mean, that is a really weird aspect of this all, is the whole, brain structure, and these
right.
people thinking that they're special, and that it's a genetic disposition, that they're finding each other, and that they're kind of this, the special people who the aliens are talking to. But that's not actually what happened with me. I've been kind of under fire for pretty much my entire time with you, Lou. People don't like skeptical voices and whatnot.
Right.
What really kind of brought this recent fire or controversy around me was David Grush. He did that interview with Ross Cohart, and he pretty much said that the government has alien bodies. We have multiple intact craft and crashed craft, and he said a lot of things in this interview, and he got a lot of pushback. A lot of people looked at the interview and listened to what he had to say, and were like, something seems a little weird here, and for one, I don't think he seemed that weird, but I do think that he seemed like he didn't have any, firsthand information, and that he was repeating stories. And I mean, I think that's, no one would argue with that, right?
Right.
But a lot of people were, commenting on his body language. The behavior panel did a big, I don't know, hour, 2 hour, episode on him.
Yeah, I mean, we
where
broke
they
it
weren't
down,
really
and
even,
it was 3 hours.
yeah. And yeah, they weren't even really necessarily commenting on his body language, but just kind of, giving their impressions of him and whatnot. And their impressions weren't that positive, right?
Right.
And I think that a lot of people who watch that have the same impression. And a couple days after that, Ross Cohart said in an interview, he was trying to kind of explain that away and say, why, that you shouldn't use your first impressions of him, because on Ross Cohart's word were, Grush admitted to me that he's autistic. And I heard that, and I was, I thought that was a really weird thing for Coulthard to say. For one, it doesn't seem like that's.
But isn't that weird, considering that his buddy best friend and connection to all of this stuff, Gary Nolan, has already put that out there. Like, I feel like they take these things. Go ahead.
As far as we know, Grush isn't an experiencer, right? Like, he's just kind of repeating stories. So the whole linking him to the brain structure and stuff doesn't seem to be that place. I think Cohart was just saying that because he wanted to say, attribute his body language to being autistic. And I thought that was kind of throwing him under the bus, and kind of that's kind of, if David Grush wants to say that about himself, or make that public, that's kind of David Grush's role, not Ross Cohart's role. At least that's what I was thinking, right?
Right.
And so I commented. I thought that this was kind of, man, this is kind of Ross Cohart kind of throwing him under the bus, kind of almost taking advantage of David Grush, using him for his story, and then when people push back about the story, making stuff private information that we don't really know was clear to be public. And so, I posted about that, saying that, this kind of seems weird. And I think I said that, it seems like David Grush was being taken advantage of. And I mean, I do think that he is being taken advantage of. I don't think he's being taken advantage of because he's autistic. But I think that it's clear that,
but then
he's being used to advance this, and it just seems weird all around, right? Because there's these firsthand people who have information, who are also kind of, having David Grush go out and tell the story, and it just seems weird on all angles. And it doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem that great, and that's what I posted, and people really hated that, right? They thought that I was being disrespectful to people with autism and whatnot, which wasn't my intention at all. And to some of the critics' points, I did have some misunderstandings about what was being said. Ross Cohart said that he was autistic. I didn't realize that autism is kind of not the term anymore. It's autistic spectrum disorder, right? So, that, has the whole, range of, severely autistic to Asperger's.
Sure. Well, I
David
mean,
Grush.
are people going to crucify you because you didn't know the vernacular of it?
Well, they did, right? And
Right. It's so silly.
the biggest person who took offense was Dan Zetterstrom, the Zigno
Right.
on Twitter,
Right.
who ended up, he knew my real name somehow. I think I maybe know how he knew that, but he knew my real name, and he posted it on the internet, as well as having like a dozen posts saying that I'm a bigot, and all sorts of libel. And eventually his buddy King Milkfart posts some horrible, untrue information about me. It's really just targeting me because I said something that they don't like about David Grush.
Right.
And what for one, they're misinterpreting me. For two, it's ridiculous. It's I mean,
well, it's Ross Coulthardt's statement.
Yeah,
he's the one who said it. Like
he said it very disrespectfully too. Saying that
right.
he admitted to having autism. That's not something you have to admit to, right? Like,
right. Also, like, it's, even if you do understand that autism is on a spectrum, which it is, obviously it ranges. Like, we don't know if, because we can't tell by looking at him, if that is true, what Ross Coulthart admitted and said, because we have to take him for his word, right? He's an award-winning journalist. Why would he just say that? Right? So if that's the case, theoretically, we don't know if he's being taken advantage of because he's on a certain spectrum. Just because you're on that spectrum doesn't mean you can't be useful in other ways, especially if you're good with numbers or good with seeing patterns or whatever that advantage is. And there's advantages, there's disadvantages. I mean, that's not insensitive to even put out there. You know what I mean? Like, as a theory.
And there's a whole, obvious history of manipulation in this community.
Right.
I feel like I've been taken advantage of. I think you've been taken advantage of. I think a lot of people have been taken advantage of in this community to, propel these stories that, people like Lou Elizondo and others are trying to propel. And also, I don't, the whole, if you look at Mirage Men, there is, a lot of history about, these intelligence people trying to pick out people of their own that they think they can manipulate and try to, feed them bad stories and stuff like that, which seems like could be going on with David Grush. I'm not saying that he is manipulable, but I think that people might see that and think that he is. And
well, we definitely know. Look, I'm sorry to cut you off, but and I know you didn't find this as a very big deal, but I feel like it's clear he has a bias to believing it, because he was at a UFO conference with a lot of UFO that were not scientists. Okay,
he was at the same conference I was at.
I know
the
that.
scientific,
the SCU conference in Alabama. Right, and the cradle of the military-industrial complex that we had spoken about.
I think that if you did generally, have this information and you wanted to, talk to scientists and see what's up, I that's the place you're going to go, right? Like, I don't think that that's a slight on David at all for going to that.
I think it is. If you're trying to convince the government that there are Bigfoot within the woods of Oregon, and you attended Bigfoot conventions before you came out as a public whistleblower that really didn't reveal any information whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Like, and people found out that he went. It's the same thing with Alex Dietrich and her husband being part of ATIP. Like, why are we finding that out 2 or 3 years after the fact? Like, that's weird. That's a weird connection. And I think people should have known that connection before that story went on 60 Minutes, because 60 Minutes didn't mention anything about it. I'm shocking they didn't find that in their background checking as journalists. That's strange. This pilot who has a 5-second testimony of seeing the UFO versus her co-pilots who had a 15-minute experience with this UFO. Her husband is on the team that investigated it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of the biggest.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, that's with all this stuff, right? Like you hear something interesting and then you learn all the ties and they all tie back to the same people, right? And that's, one of my big problems with David Grush is that, he's hearing things from multiple people, but we don't know who those people are. And why do you think we don't know who those people are? I think it's because we already know who they are. We know their names and they're the same old people who are telling us the same stories.
I think it's Eric Davis. I think it's Gary Nolan. I think it's Hal Puthoff. I think
it's Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar, maybe definitely in there. If it's not Bob Lazar telling them, I don't know if Bob Lazar's the kind of guy who would be talking to them behind the scenes. Maybe he is. He doesn't strike me as that, even as scamalicious as I think he is. He doesn't strike me as the guy who seeks to have those conversations.
I guess the only other the reason I say that is because the only other time I've heard the story about archaeological digs and other intact craft
Lazar.
And David Grush said that exact same thing, right? And David Grush also mentioned heavy metals or something like that.
Yeah, but they don't have which is Lazar. Yeah, which is Lazar. But they don't have to meet Lazar to reference that shit.
True, but when they're talking about whistleblowers with firsthand experience working on these legacy programs,
well,
there's one name that fits that bill.
Yeah, technically speaking, that would be Lazar. That would be Lazar.
And then we learned that in these upcoming congressional hearings, there's someone who couldn't had some weird issues with their background check, which also kind of seems like Lazar. He's had lots of legal weird stuff happen in his past.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. Well, it'll be really interesting next week to find out.
He pled guilty to running a brothel. He pled guilty to doing that.
Well, and he sold stuff that someone ended up murdering someone with, right? Like
he married former member of the Hells Angels, who, yeah, dude, there's a lot of weird stuff with that guy. Yeah, I wonder if privately they pitched Bob Lazar to do congressional hearings and it went miserably and he failed the background check and they've just shut up about it and they're completely ignoring it. I wonder if that happened. That's interesting because you're right. It does fit. Everything that he said or pulled from could have easily been Bob Lazar. Easily. Every single thing he said. Damn, dude. Yeah, well, the thing about the body panel guys, experts, is that they've done so many of those breakdowns that they don't break it down anymore like they used to, where they explain the tics and the movements of things of like eyes or furrowed of brows or, twinging of lips, things like that. They don't break that down as much anymore because they've got books and it's in an archive of other times that they've done that. So I think they just get straight to the point now, but I do think that they're relying on those skills to break this guy down. And the thing that I found really interesting was that all of them eventually came to the conclusion of there's something nefarious about this. Like there's just something that doesn't ring right here. And I don't know if you've heard my theory here in the last couple shows, but what do you think of the idea of this being a long play to get public dollars for contracts to look for UAP once the government fails to answer the questions to the satisfaction of the raging public? That because I have a feeling after we spend a couple of $1 billion, this is going to be a 5-year thing at least, where they look at this and every year they revise the budget, they revise the laws just to get deeper and deeper and deeper. In every congressional hearing, it's going to be, we still haven't found anything. This is the best we got. These are examples of things that we're looking at. Here's some things that we declassified to get some clarity on, and yada, yada, yada. And it's going to reach a boiling point where the public is going to demand somebody else look at it. That's not the government. And then that's when the Americans for Safe Aerospace, and that's when, you know, the Avi Loebs come in, and all of these independent people that are already looking at this part of the sky apply for those government contracts, and boom, there you go. You've got a 5 to 7 year grift, and when this is all over, the government can turn around and say, okay, well, now we've got instruments that are looking at that part of the sky. We've alerted all of our staff and military personnel that these are okay to report. We have a system to report them. We've destigmatized this successfully because we've gotten to the bottom of it. Because they're going to be able to point to a budget. They're going to be able to point to NASA scientists, the Aero Office, all of the stuff that they declassified, and they're going to say, there's nothing here. There's nothing here, but it's just they're going to have to go through every single nook and cranny and check every single thing. And that's going to take a long time. And I think there's going to be, again, increases in budget maybe. And folks, I mean, like, why is Ryan Graves roaming around the halls of Congress talking to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand about looking at certain airspace of the sky, as if the military can't do that?
Yeah, and that's an interesting theory. When I look back at the whole, the what's happened since 2017, yeah. I'm not sure that totally fits in my mind, because you hear Lou Elizondo talk about, this is the first gear, second gear, right. Third gear of disclosure, right? And I think that they actually did have a plan that was leading towards, this story of now we have alien bodies, we have alien craft, we have the government has agreements with, the aliens. It seems right. like that's where it all is leading to. But it seems to me that they're kind of, as they are changing gears, one of the gears kind of didn't really quite catch as well as they wanted it to. And I'm talking about, the UAP task force. And when John J. Stratton and Travis Taylor got kind of ousted from that, and some more respectable people came over and started kind of, being like, yeah, there's not these crazy things happening in the sky. There's things that we don't know, we don't have enough information to explain, but right. they're not ET. We don't have any evidence of non-human intelligence and anything like that. Yeah. I think that wasn't in their plan. They thought that Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor were going to come out and convince the public that, yes, there are weird stuff in the sky that we can't explain, and that is definitely not prosaic. And if they had done that, and that kind of had gone through, and no one knew that it was Travis Taylor saying this information because they tried to hide that from us, then people like me would be much more apt to believe this more crazy, alien bodies and recovered craft. But without that link, it just really falls short for me. Like I was interested in 2017 because it sounded very plausible. There's weird stuff in the sky that we can't explain, and okay, yeah, that seems believable. But now they're saying now that's even kind of in question, right? And now on top of that, they're saying we have alien bodies, recovered craft, agreements with the aliens, the government right. does. And it's just like that's a bridge too far, and they haven't made that foundation. And I think that they wanted to lead us all there so that we'd all believe that more intense stuff.
Yeah, well, they could also heal our bodies, and we saw this
free energy.
Yeah, free energy, which is, again, man, the free energy one is just the worst for me. Like, because we should be knocking on the door of the Department of Energy and going, hey, what's up with those nuclear engines in the submarines and aircraft carriers that you guys use? Can we take a look at that? Like, is it time yet? Like, are we allowed to see it? Could we use it? I don't know, in some of our poorest neighborhoods, or to provide free power after, who knows, an emergency? Like, why, if you could put it in a submarine, that means you can make it mobile. Theoretically, right?
Yeah, if it exists,
or an aircraft carrier, like if you put it on a big enough trailer, or you hold it with a big enough helicopter, theoretically you could use it as a generator and power a town after it gets hit by a hurricane or something like that. Who knows? I think there's a lot of practical uses for something like that. I don't know, energy independence, a lot of stuff. Clean energy. Like, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons to be knocking on the door of the Department of Energy, not Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, and I think we'd both love for that to be true, right? That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, that part of it is true, right? Like, those engines do exist.
What, nuclear engines?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I do think that's probably the solution to the energy crisis
when a
is
submarine
nuclear.
doesn't have to refuel for 100 years, it's running off of something. I mean, is it that
But I
plausible
mean,
to
that's
think to just upscale it, make it bigger? Make it something, or I don't know,
well,
man.
no, I mean, that's we have nuclear reactors. That I think that's a whole another political
Well,
challenge of
right.
the.
Well, we have old nuclear reactors, is what it is. We don't have those new submarine reactors, which I think would be a lot more stable and cleaner and more efficient, and all of the good things that takes decades to figure out about nuclear energy. But anyway, yeah, don't want to go down that path. But I think
I
that whole
agree, though.
free that free energy idea is silly, because there's already technology that can produce it. Is really the bottom line there. But yeah, okay. So what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna. Yeah, we shouldn't wait for the aliens to give us the free energy and clean energy. We should try to develop it ourselves on the known technologies. I'm in total agreement with you.
Yeah. Couple donations events. I thank you very much. He says, imagine how much money Avi has raised. He's been campaigning nonstop for years now. I trust him, but that's how you profit off of something like this. And I know it's in a few million,
Yeah, I know. Alvi gets some hate. I think that he's one of the good ones in all of this.
Okay, let's talk
I
about
like
this
Alvi.
let's talk about this for a second, because I saw an astrophysicist break down Avi Loeb and sort of the kooky shit that he's been doing lately, and how, from a scientific perspective, it's not normal, the things that he's doing, especially when it comes to writing papers, like actual legitimate scientific papers that he's posting every month, like in these scientific forums. And everybody's like, bro, you can't have this many, scientific theories and papers. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's gone to a point of quackery. And when you go back and listen to that debate that they had, remember that big multi-panel debate, and Avi Loeb went off on that one lady? Remember that?
Vaguely,
Okay.
not
Well,
very well though.
that lady is the same lady that is based on the movie Contact that Jodie Foster plays. Okay, like, she knows her shit when it comes to astronomy and looking for extraterrestrial life. And this idea that he could just swoop in with this extraterrestrial object that came through our solar system and declare somehow like that is extraterrestrial, it kind of it throws us all under the bus, was her statement. Remember, like, she was, and then he went off on her. He's like, how dare you attack me? And he went absolutely crazy. That was the same lady that I'm forgetting her name right now, and I'm gonna look it up as soon as you respond. But like, what do you like now? What do you think of that? And I'm also gonna send you the video of this astrophysicist breaking down his work and what other scientists are saying about his work. Not people like us, but people who are actually in that field, that are going, what the hell is this guy doing?
I mean, yeah, Avi is definitely a bit of a showman, and I think that he does, kind of talk up a lot of his findings, which is controversial. But I think that at the heart of it, he has some good ideas that should be followed up on, and the whole, notion of interstellar objects, which is what Avi is looking for, I think is our best bet for finding extraterrestrial technology. I know that Avi's, found this stuff on the bottom of the ocean floor near where a interstellar object had crashed, and he's found some fragments that he thinks are from that. And he might be over talking the claims, but it is very interesting to find these interstellar objects, even if they aren't ET technology. 10 years ago, people didn't even think that these things existed.
Sure, I guess. But I mean, you don't need to know that they existed to know that they're out there. There's interstellar objects that are going to eventually come through the solar system. Like, we're literally shooting through space as like a bullet with all of these celestial bodies spinning around us. It's an absolute Like we're gonna run into something eventually. You know, it's not that crazy. It's if it was a craft, however, you know, or a piece of a craft, it would, like, should we not look? No, that's preposterous. Of course we should look, but the name of the lady was Jill Tarter. Jill Tarter is the one who he kind of lambasted, and man, I can't wait to send you this video because I think you're gonna have a different opinion of Avi. And also, like, again, going back to it's just weird. Chris Mellon is on that project. Sean Cahill is on that project. They've got their influence and their claws in it, as they do with every single one of these independent, you know, explorers looking at the sky, trying to give answers to only the government, kind of, sort of. They're not really exposing anything for the American public. They haven't done any real public advocacy. They haven't emphasized, like, why aren't any of these guys screaming at the top of their lungs about Bob Lazar and why he should be called into Congress? I know it's not in their control, but God damn, Jeremy Corbell has connections to lawmakers. I'm sure David Fravor was just on Ryan Graves' podcast giving Bob Lazar high praise and how smart he was. Why aren't they using that influence to say, hey, lawmakers, call him in? What about George Knapp's huge reach, you know, and on the airwaves of not only KTLA, but on Coast to Coast AM? And he should be ringing the bell. Hey, everybody, like, call your congressman, ask him to call in Bob Lazar. Like, same thing with Corbell. Why aren't they yelling at the top of their lungs?
I think they tried and he couldn't pass a background check. But I'd much rather see Bob Lazar debate Eric Weinstein. I think that would be a more enlightening conversation than even him testifying.
Well, they won't answer either. They won't answer either request, man. That's the problem. I would love to see that too. But
I mean, that's one of the many problems in this sphere of weirdness, right? You know, the other one is that everyone claims to have world-changing information that they know about and that they could tell us, but they won't.
Yeah. Right? Okay. So let's talk about that for a second, because you were saying also, because like me, you were also friends with Dan Zetterstrom. Like, that was always. And I think even when I tore into his ass on the last show, I think even part of you was like, man, I wish you wouldn't do that to Dan, you know. But I saw,
I like Dan. I liked Dan.
I liked Dan, right? Like, how could you not like Dan? He's a nice guy. And well, we thought he was a nice guy, and until we start seeing these things and the people that he consorts with, and it's harder to see these patterns until finally they actually just show who they really are. And I think this example is exactly what I saw back last year, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs about, and now I think people finally see for themselves. Which, by the way, that reminds me, I'm taking both of these patches down. I kept these up because I wanted to, like, I wanted to just keep a little bit of hope that maybe one day, you know, we can have a civilized conversation where it's not filled with belief and you know, some sort of hero worship that they can't let go of. But that day's gone after they doxed you. But again, the reason why I got onto this whole little spiel here is that we were good. We were friends. Like, I considered him a friend. And so I'm sure, just like I did, had private conversations with him. And in one of these conversations, he said what to you?
Well, yeah. So, you know, I mean, first off, you know, I was friends with Dan. You know, we did some cool remote viewing sessions. You know, I thought he had some really, you know, great takes, and he kind of, you know, had the same kind of scientific, you know, take on a lot of things that I had. I felt a lot of kind of, you know, kinship with him. And, you know, back when, you know, Lou Elizondo was on Christina Gomez's show and talked about there being a single sensor that would allow anyone to see these, you know, UAP at will. There was a lot of speculation going on Twitter. You know, a lot of people were saying that it was CE5 and the human mind that was going to cause this. And, you know, every time there was a post like that, I'd see Dan responding saying, no, I know that's not it. That's not it. Move on. It's something else. And so, I messaged him saying, hey, do you know what it is?
Yeah.
And I won't say, I won't tell anyone if you do. And he did. He confided in me, said that yes, I do know what it is, but please don't tell anyone that I know this. And this
Yeah.
was, God, I don't know, probably over a year ago, right? It was, when that whole thing came out. And I
Yeah.
did keep it close to the vest. I didn't want to betray his confidence. And I kind of understood where he was coming from. He wants to keep his relations with Lou Elizondo, nice, and he doesn't want, to damage that relationship, and I respected that. And I respected that until he completely disrespected me by doxing me and calling me a bigot.
Yeah.
And at that point,
I got one question about that. Sorry to cut you off, but some people are claiming that they got that information from public forums, like was it Twitch or some other kind of forum, some other social media forum where your identity is out there. Is that true?
That may be true, but that was probably if they got it from that, it was out there for over a year or two, and no one bothered to find it and expose me until Dan Zignal started getting riling up the masses.
His 20,000 followers.
Yeah. So when you tell 20,000 followers that I'm a horrible bigot, a dozen times, it's gonna, the pitchforks were out, and they found my identity. And I mean, I don't really care. I have nothing horrible in my past. People think that I'm hiding my identity because I have some horrible secrets. That's just ridiculous. I went to SCU and I told people my name. And that's might be how Dan figured it out. But him
we also
exposing it on the internet is just shows a complete disrespect and just shows that he's an asshole.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we also had to. I mean, you had to buy a hotel, you had to buy tickets to the event, which there's a form to fill out with those things. And so when you and I were talking, that's where like, I guess they got it from the SCU conference. But that's funny that I didn't know that you were using your real name and introducing yourself as Ed over there. Or I just said your name. Sorry, I didn't mean to do
that. No worries.
But yeah, man. I mean, like it's.
Well, I kind of did that with the thought of all right, who is going to expose me, right? Like, well, that and it's like I kind of was waiting for someone to be like, oh, I know who you are, and I'd then be able to realize that they're a complete asshole and ignore them. And that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, man, that's absolutely wild. I feel like these guys, there was a conference, I think it was the Roswell conference that everybody just went to, and it was so clear to me what everybody was there for, and that was to see their face on a billboard. Like that got them more excitement than any speech, any person they met. Like every single one of them was tagging themselves on a lighted billboard in Roswell, New Mexico. And that is the peak of their importance when it comes to being known in the world. And
I mean, to me, I gotta admit that's kind of cool though.
It's not that cool, dude. It's not that cool. It's not cool enough to stab your friends in the back for. Like when you put it in that perspective, like to me, it's not cool at all. It's lame as shit. It's as lame as it looks to me.
With what this recent, what happened makes me wonder if we ever really were friends, right? And in retrospect, I don't think that we were. I think that Dan was, probably feeding information back to Lou Elizondo and, who knows what. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's, again, it's like we've, for all the things that we get accused of, we've never doxed anybody. We've never, sexually harassed anybody or have arrest records in our past or any of these things that they point fingers at. But it's wild to me that here you have two guys who know a sensor setting. They could tell the world right now where to get the equipment, what to set it to, and they can find the phenomenon for themselves and expose it to the world, and everybody will corroborate this stuff by using the same equipment, and nobody wants to say a fucking thing. But when it comes to exposing Ratherby Squidding and what his real name is, and galvanizing 20,000 people that follow you to terrorize, threaten, make fun of somebody who simply just asked the question that was put out by their hero.
And I didn't delete any tweets. So if you're wondering what this is all about, go to be Squidding and look through what set Dan off against me. Right? It's ridiculous.
Has Dan deleted those tweets calling you a bigot, or has he still left those up?
I'm not sure. He's blocked me, and Twitter's rate limited these days, so I don't really know what's going on over there that much.
Yeah, man, it sucks. It absolutely sucks.
But it is ridiculous. To your point about the censor, it's ridiculous. The truth could all come out if he's telling the truth. If Lou's telling the truth, it would all come out.
Yeah, I mean, we've also got Ross Coulthart, keeping secrets from people.
Yeah, and Mick West made a great point about this, which is, he says that he won't tell us the location of this giant craft that they found that they had to build a base over. It was so big they couldn't move it. He won't tell us the location, but he'll tell us that it exists.
Right.
So if people in the know are like, "Oh, we got to keep this a secret," the secret's already out.
Yeah,
and the people who are in the know, they know who knows this secret, right? If it's true. So if this is true, that source is already burned. The people that are important know who he is, and by him telling us where it is, that would give people like me and you, actually anyone, no more information to know who this source is. So saying he's protecting his sources is completely disingenuous.
Yeah, it's a lie. Dude, it's it's just so wild. If it was actually true, he would be in some sort of cell like Guantanamo Bay-ish, where his rights are taken away, and they'd be like, okay, where did you get this from? Tell us now, like, where the hell you got this from? If it was true.
And that's what makes this whole, the last couple of months of disclosure all seem so ridiculous to me. Mm-hmm. Because as I said, in 2017, the story was believable, right? That there's unexplainable craft that we just can't explain. Now they're saying that the aliens have agreements with the government. We have craft and bodies. So if there really is that big of a huge conspiracy and cover up, I mean, it wouldn't be getting out.
Right. Well, the thing, it's so stupid. Like,
it's just so stupid.
It really is stupid. Like, this idea that this craft, and I really, like, he said it was it incomprehensibly big, which to me is like, well, what does that mean? Is that one aircraft carrier, or is that 100? Because 100 would be incomprehensibly big. Like, that to me would class like 100 aircraft carriers put together in one location in a desert or Antarctica somewhere would be incomprehensible to me. Like, that would be enormous, right? That would be like 100. Sure. It would be more than 100 Superdomes. Like, how would you? Okay, if you had to build a structure over it, that means that the construction project on that would have been massive. Massive. Where do they get the metal? Where do they get the materials? Where do they get all the equipment and the personnel that are going to shut up about it? Like, where do they get all of that? And to work in a foreign country as well? Like, and run an American operation. Like, this is the United States of America. They can't do stuff like that without everybody knowing about it.
Well, yeah. And it even, yes, to that point, yes. But also... there's these giant, enormous craft. There's dozens of other crash craft. but only the US government has been able to find them. And like, there's no
Right.
records of like anyone throughout history finding these things. Like, come on, it just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid, dude. It is seriously so stupid. Greg O'Brien, thank you for the donations. Appreciate it. He says, rock and roll, gentlemen. Cosmic Judas is in the house. Weinstein's only purpose is to enter different scientific communities and start fights. He's been doing it for 7 years now. Be bigger. That's kind of true.
Maybe. I think that another one of his things is he wants to promote his own, physics theories, and he thinks that this might, help bolster that. At least that's my kind of take on him.
Yeah. Hey, we got 100 people in here, man, pretty much. So thanks for being here. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Smash that like, share the show. Tell everybody we're talking about Dan Zetterstrom and his doxing techniques. And I guess let's gosh, what do I want to talk to you about next? I guess the next thing we should talk about is probably Schumer's new legislative UAP bill. Which I love how this news hit. It was so funny. It was the big headline with the article, and then we got the actual bill, and it was, it could be revealed, or it could be held on to for another 25 years, and it's up to the president, and he's going to pick the committee. And there's a lot of things now that people reading the fine print going, okay, what is actually going on here? Is this going to really get to the bottom of things? What's your take?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is cool. I'm for it. Let's
why not?
It would be better if those loopholes weren't there, but I think that it's a good bill. If this stuff exists, let's find it, right?
Well, let's say this: it's a good start. And again, if you're going to update these bills, kind of like my theory was suggesting, every single year there's going to be new additions to cover things like, for example, the Title 5, right, or Title 50, like that wasn't in Arrow's sort of power in this first pass at the office. You put this bill in, and okay, sure, the first year you get this thing, but clearly once we open the office and we do the budget, blah, 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 we'll figure out real quickly, oh, we actually have to be transparent on at least some of these things. Like maybe we get there.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's people are also saying that this Schumer having this bills and saying this means that Schumer must believe it and think that it's true, right? Mm-hmm. And that this confirms all their beliefs. When in actuality, it doesn't. It's just and it's a good thing, and Schumer, it's a win-win for him, right? Like, is there any negative downside to this? Either, he passes this bill and exposes some information and he's the hero who's changed human history forever, or it comes out that, we get some information that, maybe it's a psyop or something weird happening, or it's just all prosaic, in which case, yay Schumer for kind of putting a kibosh on all the weirdness that's happening and all the subterfuge and all of that. So I think that it's no one's saying, we shouldn't investigate these stories.
Right.
So why are people, thinking that it's such a sign that everything's true? It's just such a preposterous story for all this stuff to be true, that we need evidence. We can't just say, oh, there's some weird language in bills, so it must all be true.
Well, I loved, and it's funny because I don't think it's getting as many views as his UFO videos, but Kurt J. Mungle's interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love how Neil, I've come back to Neil deGrasse Tyson because he's so blunt and he's so scientific and he's so just matter. He's like, look, this conversation is fun over beers, but I'm not going to commit any lab time to it. I'm not going to commit any actual brain power to it. And thinking about it philosophically, like, what's the point? I mean, maybe I would argue things like, well, what's the point of Star Trek? What's the point of science fiction? Like, I think those exercises in art and philosophy, lead to new technologies, right? Like the idea of like, well, let's see if we can do it, you know, like, can we create a warp engine? Can we create teleportation? You know, can we have little gadgets where we call people on like walkie talkies, you know, from on the other side of the world, you know, or look at each other's face, you know, like those things I think are valuable, but at the same time, I think he's got a great point. Like, it's like, okay, we know about it. If you want to commit part of the budget to looking at it, okay, fine, you know, but I need proof. I'm not interested in stories, because he asked him about Grush and he's like, yeah, I'm not interested. You know, I don't give a shit. Like, those are stories. I need proof.
Yeah, and stories are great. I love stories, and you know, sci-fi is great, but there is a difference between, you know, speculating and you know, saying, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this was possible, to saying this is the reality that we're living in, and it's completely different than the reality you think you're living in, and having, you know, people that in high esteem tell that to a lot of people who might take that, and it might negatively affect their lives. Like, there is a downside into, you know, believing things that aren't true, and unfortunately, I think that's, you know, a lot of people are being convinced that some things that probably aren't true are true, and you know, hopefully that they don't go too far down the rabbit hole and find some truth and are able to, you know, take back their hold of reality.
I don't know, man. At this point, it's just gotten so silly. And the terrible reporting on this is I think the most eye-opening, sort of flabbergasting part of it is how it's just a lot of copy paste. Except for the one thing that did give me hope is when Grush and Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal were pitching this to other news entities, and they were like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Especially if you're going to rush us, we're definitely not interested. You know, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, news in general, I think, is not that great in the world anymore, right? Like, I feel like it used to be the old, you know, the news people who really had high ethical standards. You know, now it seems like it's all just about, you know, revenue and getting those clicks. And UFO stories are
very
people
clickable.
click them.
Yeah, they're very, very clickable. Okay, so there was another thing I wanted to talk to you about. I'm trying to remember. Ooh, gosh. What else did we miss, rather? There's been so much that's happened. It's kind of hard to keep track of it.
Yeah, I mean, next week, or the 26th, we'll be having these congressional hearings, right?
That's what I wanted to talk about, the congressional hearings. And I heard a rumor today that, and it was the first time I heard it, and it kind of lines up with what people were saying about Lou coming out toward end of summer or summertime. I thought it was the book, and there was a lot of people sort of expressing doubt about it being the book because those processes take a long time. And he said he was still in the process of writing it, this, I believe, last year. Late last year, he was still turning in manuscripts or parts of it. So for it to be out by this summer would have been, I think, a monumental feat, I guess is what I would say, because it's usually not the time frame for books. But long story short, not really. But the point was, is I heard Elizondo might testify.
Yeah, I think, didn't he post that he's going to be in Washington D.C. too? I think he did.
Wouldn't shock me. I mean, I feel like he's probably in DC every time something like this happens, just to be there, you know, for the as they call the spin room after, you know, what happens. But I'm curious. That's the first time I heard that rumor, and it came from a really decent source, and he had heard it a couple times, and I was like, well, and what was funny, it was like, well, what is he gonna say, like, that we haven't heard before, you know? And I think it's just gonna be a lot of the same. If he does testify, it's gonna be a lot of the same stuff, but if anything, it just puts his name out there on a much bigger scale. And I think it reintroduces him again to the American public, and he could just go on another tour, as soon as it's over. Boom, Elizondo's back, baby, and he's doing all of the podcasts that got pre-approved in the first run, and he's giving all the secrets and giving all the hints and all the stories and the lore for another, year or two until we hit whatever gear we're in by that point.
Yeah, I would not be shocked at all. I mean, I think he'd be, a good witness, right? I mean, I don't think he'd be a good. He's a good speaker. He is a good speaker. He's charismatic, and he really knows how to slyly answer questions without really answering them, right? So if you're, of the people who are kind of pushing this disclosure, he'd be a no-brainer to put up in front of Congress. I think he'd probably do very well up there.
I think he would too. God, I would be so disappointed if at least one staffer didn't know who this guy was, and sort of all of the ruckus that he's caused. I don't know if McGowan foiled something very interesting. I'm not sure if he shared it publicly yet, so I don't want to spill the beans, but it was pretty damning when it comes to the IG complaint. And yeah, I can't say anything else past that. I feel like I'm doing a Ross Coulthard right here. But I just don't want to ruin, if he's writing an article or something, I don't want to ruin that. But yeah, dude, it's pretty damning. And
what
man, I've heard some other stuff today that just absolutely blew my mind. Yeah, dude, I don't want to say any part of it at all because I feel like people will know exactly who I'm talking about. But there is some great stuff that has not seen the light of day on all of these people, including some of our most ardent haters, which is really funny.
That's interesting. And I mean, yeah. I should say, I don't fault anyone for, believing Elizondo and, believing these stories. Like,
no,
I believe Lou Elizondo. He's a very good speaker, and what he says is very, believable. But what made me kind of turn the word on Lou Elizondo was, our close interactions with him and realizing all the weird manipulation and subterfuge and, spreading lies and, trying to, assassinate people's character that he's doing, that he was doing, at least with his faceless bureaucrat account and all this stuff. And it doesn't seem believable to me that someone who really has world-changing information that he knows is true and is going to come out would be behaving in that manner. So, I think that we have, me and you have a little bit of insight that most people don't. And I think that's kind of what colors our perception of him and a lot of the story.
But you know what's even better is these things are starting to come to pass now. Some of these things, like everything that I said about That UFO Podcast and Dan Zetterstrom turned out to be right. Everything I said about Chupacabra turned out to be right. Everything I said about King Milkfart turned out to be right. We learned some interesting things about him in the last couple of weeks. Like all of these things, and also just the predictions as far as what's going to happen in these congressional hearings, the double speak of a lot of these faces and a lot of the people pushing this narrative is a lot more clear now. And I think like those are the things that we were pointing at. The manipulation, all of those things are starting to really bubble up to the surface, and becoming, and a lot. I think the thing that gave me the most hope, rather, is hearing that our show, and this came from somebody I really, really respect, who is like, dude, your show is the whole reason we do what we do. And I was like, yes, man. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Like that makes me feel good. Like the fact that there's a lot of folks out there that followed this journey and saw everything that happened from the very beginning of this channel all the way to that last show. and they saw it clear as day, and it's now giving them a space to question things, because I don't know. I found it shocking to learn that there wasn't really a space where people were like allowed to talk about this openly. You know, usually like these kinds of conversations happen on private servers because people are afraid to share these opinions because they don't want to be ostracized and stigmatized by their community. Wow, that's full circle, isn't it? But you know what I mean? Like it's
well, yeah, that's heartening to hear, because it does often seem like no one's listening, right? No one's listening to
it feels
the
like that a
clear
lot
evidence that's
other
right in front of
times.
them, right?
Yeah.
And like I feel that even with this, new legislation, it's a good thing, right? Like let's get the information, but it's also incredibly frustrating because if information comes out that the believers don't agree with,
Are
I
they
mean,
going to
I
accept it?
know they're just gonna say that,
Yeah.
oh, there's still a cover up. It's
Right.
not, this is all still true, and these hints that the government was even, considering it just proves that it's true. But the cover up's too deep. They hid it again, and it's just it's
Do
it's
you think
frustrating because it feels like you can. I mean, there's no winning in this, but it feels like you can never win, right?
Do you think there's anything that could surface publicly about these people that would put them in a position where defending their actions would be nearly impossible? Do you think the community would go, okay, enough, just like we did? Or do you think the community would dig in their heels and say, I got his back?
100%. I think they have his back, right? I mean, they had his back when Lou implied that my mother was a hooker, and that when doing all this weird stuff with his faceless bureaucrat account, people relentlessly had his back and were making all sorts of excuses for him, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see how people completely just straight ignore the red flags with this whole thing. How they, even with all of the progress that's been made, it still feels like a guise of some sort of, it's like it's the carrot dangling in front of the horse. Like, you're never gonna get it, dude. You're never gonna get it. And by the time in 25 years, when whatever new toy is publicly revealed, we're gonna go, that's what those fucking UFOs were. It was this thing, because when we got the triangles, back in the 80s, and we got, in the 70s, and we heard about these, these fast moving objects at high altitudes and how weird they were, and they didn't look like aircraft, and bada boom, in the 80s, you get the SR-71 Blackbird and the Blackhawk, like, and the stealth bomber, and like, those planes were being flown, and there were rumors about them. And I think a lot of these rumors and a lot of this stuff happening is perfect for the United States military. It's exactly where they want the conversation, because all of their toys, people are going to look at and go, aliens! And they're going to go, yeah, it's totally alien. Yep, might be. I don't know. We'll take a look at it. Like, it's a perfect smokescreen, because it's better than them looking at it and yelling, United States Navy, like, new aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, my number one hope is that it is aliens, and I'm wrong about all of this, right? My number two hope is that it is.
Why is that your number one hope? Shouldn't your number one hope be, fuck, I hope we made that?
I don't know. Aliens would be so damn cool, Lou. If aliens were here visiting us, it would be like we're living in a movie. It'd be amazing.
See, the more I think about it, the more terrifying that seems. Because if that is true, then that means we're sort of like like an aquarium in a way, and in this who knows what. Like, I don't want to know if that's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
reality. Like, would
it
you
would
want
mean
to
that there's
know
so
that?
much more to know, though, right? It would mean that there's so much more to our lives and to the universe, and
Well, but
it'd be fascinating.
but what would you rather do? Know more and be told more, or have the hardware to explore it?
I mean, that would be pretty damn cool too. And that's my number two hope is that is that it's ours, right? Of course, I don't
I
think either of
think
those are true, though.
you don't
I
think so. You think
I think
so?
that it's
So
the
then,
third option, that this is all just talk, and there's good reason for talk too. You talk about how if we had the technology, this would be a great cover. But if
yeah,
we don't have the technology and we maybe are afraid that China is kind of eclipsing us in technology, then
yeah,
spreading these rumors is a great thing to do.
yeah,
We use UFOs. The government used UFOs in the past, like you were saying, to cover up things, cover up their exotic craft. I could see them using it to kind of make people believe that they have capabilities that they don't have, to kind of keep
right.
people from launching those nukes or
Well,
something like
even or
that.
and not even so much launching the nukes, but possibly even getting those those heads of state to devote a large part of their budget to looking into it themselves,
Yes,
and
exactly.
sort
That's
of throwing off their research and development on things that maybe they were actually really close to, that would have been a lot scarier than them looking at, oh my God, the US has UFOs, we got to build one, whatever.
well, it's just like what the Soviets did to us with remote viewing, right?
Right.
They had a bunch of listening devices that we didn't know about. The United States government didn't know about, so they were getting all this information. The Americans were like, how do they know all this stuff? So the
Yeah.
Russians were like, oh well, we have these psychic spies, and they kind of let the Americans find that information. And so the Americans were like, well, they have psychic spies. That's how I know all this information. Let's let's
Right.
let's get Hal Puthoff to research this and spend a bunch of money.
Right,
And
and the Stanford
I
Research
think
Institute, and he's got his buddies Gary Nolan and Eric Davis, and we can write all sorts of papers. And oh, we know this billionaire that'll fund it too, so don't worry about spending too much money. We got his pockets to dig into. Don't sweat it. And he believes in ghosts. James Craig with a $20 donation. Thank you so much. He says, "We hear you and are listening, Lewin, rather." So hey man, we really appreciate it. We appreciate the love and the donation. Yeah man, it means the world to us. I was just discussing, and I mean, I guess it's a good time to sort of tell the audience maybe a little bit too, because there might be a shift in sort of the things that I cover, just because there's a lot of things affecting me personally outside of this discussion that I think need to be talked about. Primarily, I think that the United States is in the middle of a massive labor movement, and nobody's labeled it or galvanized it yet, because not only have the writers gone on strike in Hollywood, but now the actors, the SAG union, me, have gone on strike against this corporate greed. And funnily, not funny enough, but I work for a rideshare company, and I don't want to be specific because who knows, whatever. But I've recently learned working for them that they take 50% of the fare that they charge the customer, and sometimes they take more. And it's absolutely ridiculous to think that anybody can live off of $23 an hour in the most expensive city in the United States. It's absolutely ridiculous. It does not work. And also taking 50 to 60% of the fare of these drivers is criminal. With they're doing all the work, they have all the liability. There's no days off, there's no paid vacations, there's no sick days, there's no health insurance, there's no real customer service when you have a question or an issue. It's outsourced to a different country. It's really criminal. It's criminal what they're doing. And I had enough and went to Jimmy Gomez's Chamber of Commerce office in my district here, which is very close to where I live. And lo and behold, when I showed up there, because I thought I was going to go in there and talk to a staffer or leave a message with somebody, and turns out there was a whole group of people protesting and it was fast food workers and rideshare employees, and there's teachers that have gone on strike. We had the Marriott employees, the hotel employees go on strike. We've had Starbucks, independent Starbucks unionize. We've had discussions on Capitol Hill about the working conditions at Amazon warehouses, and how they want to unionize, and how the laws are being influenced, and special interests are coming in and basically putting the kaput on workers' rights. And I feel like a lot of days I'm working to buy somebody a new yacht. It's really unfair. It's getting to a point where workers have had enough. And if we've seen this recent message from Ron Perlman, the actor Ron Perlman, if you guys haven't heard, I told Rather this story. He hadn't been caught up, but Ron Perlman basically put a threat out there to Hollywood executives, because there was an article, I believe, in Variety, which is a trade magazine in Hollywood, and all of the new productions and news and director hires and production team moves, things like that, big, studio acquisitions, they're all pretty much spoken about in this magazine. And there's a few other magazines. I might not have the magazine right, but essentially there was an article that had quoted a major executive within a big company, saying that they were going to wait out the strike until October, November, when the writers and the actors start running out of money and can't pay their mortgage and can't pay their bills and can't put food on the table. And that really lit a fire under. It's the reason why SAG joined the writers in the strike. It's the reason why our president came out and held and basically told the world that we're going to join the writers. And this is bullshit. When you've got an executive that makes $27 million a year and is paid 400 times more than the lowest paid employee at their company, there's something wrong. Especially when in the 80s, it was 30 times more than the lowest paid employee. Somehow it's gone up to 400 times more than the lowest paid employee, and you're not creating anything, you're not writing anything, you're not doing basically shit. You're not doing anything that brings value to that brand. And Ron Perlman basically put a threat out there to this executive, and that executive, it's out now. It was Bob Iger from Disney. And, the threat was basically like, hey, people lose their house all the time, pal. And sometimes it's because you did something stupid, or you just bad luck. And sometimes it's because you're being a greedy pig and something happens, be careful what you say about the workers that are giving you that 400 times salary than your lowest paid employee. And the writers are not even asking for that much. Like they take 1% of the total revenue that these companies make, 1%, and they're asking for 2%. They're asking for 2%. It's not that big of an ask, especially when the CEO is making 27 million. So sorry to get on the high horse there, but I think that's something that we're going to start talking about. And don't be surprised if I big phone home something like that, because I think that is way more important and way more visceral than UFOs. And I think a lot of people can relate to that pain more than they can UFOs. And I think it's time that we start really putting the feet to the fire in different places. I think the feet to the fire have been held on UFOs. We're going to get our answers, non-answers here in the next 10 to 15 years. And you guys are still going to be arguing it until the end of time. This is something I actually want to argue for. This is something I actually believe in. This is something that actually affects me. And I'm sure it affects a lot of you guys out there too. I can't be the only one, because I talk to a lot of people at this job that come through my car, and a lot of people are having the exact same frustrations that I'm having. Working as hard as people do, living in this city, Los Angeles should be a shining beacon for how to do things the right way, how to lead in in civic engineering and all sorts of stuff. We have such an opportunity here, and everybody is stepping outside of their homes when they go to work over bums high on heroin that have set up a tent shacky, in front of your home. Like, and you're stepping over human feces, and the city's dirty and nothing works, and it's really frustrating. and you work your ass off only to find out that you're sometimes making less than 50% of the income that's you're generating off your back, off of your car. Like, holy cow. Anyway, so Eventide with a $5 donation. Imagine if aliens are superior and helpful, but just have good, awful senses of humor. I mean, that would be, could you imagine if this was just like a TV show for them? Earth.
Yeah, well, I say I think you should do that, Lou, because it does. I mean, even listening to that, I feel a little bit ashamed that I'm, devoting so much of my time to getting up to speed on the latest of these whistleblowers and UFO nonsense instead of, paying attention to the real social issues that our country is having. And I feel like, if you talk about a downside to ufology and being consumed with ufology, I think that's it. It is a distraction against real social issues that we probably should be paying more, at least I personally should be paying more attention to.
I mean, how great would it have been if yesterday or 2 days ago, Chuck Schumer had put out a bill that prevents gig economy companies to take advantage of their workers in that way, or more workers' rights, or the ability to unionize for places like Amazon. Like, I think that's a hell of a lot more useful to people than the legislation that he put out 2 days ago. And that's not a controversial thing to say.
No, I agree.
And yeah, enough's enough. UFOs are fun. This is great, but it's also just stupid. It's so stupid. And there's a lot of there's a lot of discussions I'm having behind the scenes that I'm telling you, the things that I'm planning are going to blow minds. They might take a decade or so to complete some of these things, but the ideas that are being pitched and the people that they're being pitched to, I'm excited. And rather, you've seen me behind the scenes when people approach me about pitching ideas and TV shows and and scripts. I'm usually pretty level-headed, and I don't get excited about stuff. But I'm telling you, there are some projects that are going to start really soon that I'm very, very excited about. And I think they're gonna make people lose their shit and laugh their asses off. There's some really good stuff that we got planned. So again, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. Like, this channel is going to change with the times. We're gonna talk about it all. But I think paying attention to some more of these social issues is going to be really, really important for us. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to add. Rather, we still got about 40 minutes with you, but we don't have to hang around for another 40 minutes. But I feel like we're missing something here. Oh God, I didn't talk about this, dude. So my Bob Lazar video, where I proposed the idea of, hey, we should call Bob Lazar into Congress, and why is it Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp sort of screaming this at the top of their lungs? But more importantly, we should also get a conversation with Bob Lazar and Eric Weinstein. So in that video, there was a challenge that I had put out about because Jeremy Corbell had made a pretty big claim regarding Bob Lazar and a naval contract that he had with the Naval Academy for iridium magnets that clean the ball bearings in the hovercraft that were getting sand in the ball bearings. And so Bob Lazar designed something to fix that problem for them. And that sounded like something that was foiable. So I put that challenge out there, and lo and behold, John Greenwald accepted the challenge. And the FOIA request for that came back. And it was, well, wonderful. So I'm going to read it because I'm really proud of this. I think this is a good moment for the show. And And it just goes to show that we still have a little bit of influence and people still listen to us. And I think we're still putting some good ideas and stuff out there that people can run with and find some really interesting answers. Department of Navy, United States Naval Academy, in Annapolis, Maryland. Subject, Freedom of Information Request, Dawn Navy 2023. Dear Mr. Greenwald, this letter is in response to the Freedom of Information Act request dated April 6, 2023, where you requested United Nuclear Scientific and Supplies contracts. Excuse me. Your request was received by this office on April 6, 2023, and assigned case Dawn Navy 2023-008399. You were placed in the, quote, media category for determining fees. The U.S. Naval Academy will recover full direct cost of duplicating records in excess of the first 100 pages of duplication. However, no fees applies. It's just I am reading the right thing. For my request, let me go to the next page. Okay. This is the right thing. So the final disposition of your request is no records. United States Naval Academy conducted a search of its financial records for various keywords related to nuclear scientific supplies and found no records responsive to your request within the last 10 years of which we have maintained those types of records. I am the designated official responsible for the denial of your request. If you have any questions, please contact me at so-and-so. If you have the right to appeal. It must be postmarked within the last 90 days. So basically nothing. There's nothing there. It's a lie. It's a bogus contract that Jeremy Corbell made up on the spot to make Stanton Friedman look like an asshole in front of a whole bunch of UFO believers at a UFO conference. Like, that's what that was. It was bullshit. And Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have not responded to it. And they never will, because that's the move. Is anytime anybody puts facts in front of them, they ignore and move on. I feel like it works in a lot of ways. It's frustrating as shit, but it does work.
No, I wasn't aware of that, but that is everything is all, can't take anything at face value that these people say. It really just drives that point home. Speaking of Lazar and Knapp, someone just posted on Twitter today reminding me about how Knapp supposedly knows where this stick of 115 is, right?
I have the video. I have it bookmarked. Should we play it? I know you can't hear it on your end, but should we play it for the people? Because it is an interesting clip.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah,
it's a good one. So let me go ahead and pull that up. I'm gonna go to my bookmarks here, which I'm already at. And okay, so here's actually the clip that I'm referring to with the Naval Academy from Jeremy Corbell.
How does that prove he's a scientist or knows how they work?
I don't even care. First of all, what proves he's a scientist is United Nuclear just got a contract with the Naval Academy to basically take... No, hold on. Let me tell you this. This is great.
Let me tell you.
He said
this morning.
At breakfast. He has a new contract, or he just finished it.
Or
they
just finished it.
Hovercrafts that go on the beach. The problem is sand is getting up in these huge ball bearings.
Go on.
So they're spending so much money cleaning these. So just like a month ago, what Bob Lazar is doing is creating neodymium magnets to clean out the sand from these huge ball bearings on hovercrafts for the Navy. He's not a scientist?
Nope,
oh my gosh, he's more of a scientist than any of us because he's doing it daily, weekly.
Guy's so full of shit, man. It's so stupid. It's so stupid, dude. Okay, so here's George Knapp talking about how he saw... Not that... George Knapp saw the element 150. What were you going to say, rather?
Well, I wonder, there's got to be a kernel of truth to that story, right? Like, I didn't hear the audio, so I'm not totally up to date with it. But I wonder because that just seems weird to be able to make up that much information on the spot. I wonder if maybe he applied for a request for proposal or something like that and didn't win the proposal. But that is weird.
I think Bob Lazar is a smart enough guy to make up a lie that extravagant.
That's also plausible.
I think he's got that kind of mischievous mind, dude. He is a mischievous little slippery dude. He's very slippery. That's probably the best way to describe him, is just slippery. He's a slippery guy, man. He's a really slippery guy.
A lot of the figureheads in this are.
Yeah. Well, let's play this George Knapp clip. And it's a 2-minute clip. So let's go ahead and also say, let's do this just because I didn't put this up, but we've got our fair use banner. So fair use is transformative work. We're educating the public and critiquing the videos we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowable by law. And yeah, so deal with it.
Bob said that the key to it was this element 115. He had a piece of it. I saw it.
Okay. Bob had a piece of element 115. I saw it. George has seen it. Bob hasn't. Why aren't they screaming to go to Congress, rather? I mean, that's in the first 6 seconds of this clip. Why would they not be like, hey, I've got an alien fuel?
They could show it to literally any scientist, and it'd be 100% stories, completely true.
Yep.
Humanity's changed forever.
Forever.
Like, even just having a solid piece of element 115, just regardless of any of the other claims, would be world-changing, physics-defying feat.
But here's another thing, rather. With the legislative language that's put in place today, why aren't more people, because now there should be safety in numbers, right? I mean, publicly speaking, there should be safety in numbers right now. So why doesn't any other actual whistleblower pull a because it's not like Edward Snowden, where if you take a drive of information and you go straight to your congressman, you're going to be arrested because the whistleblower protections are in place. You said I could come to you with this information. Here it is. I should not be arrested. You've gotten the permission from the federal government. If you're working on one of these programs, if you don't come forward, you're going to be in trouble. And no one has come out yet that has actually physically been there, worked on the project, been read in. Not one whistleblower has come out. And to me, that is also strange.
Yeah, I mean, can you remember the hype about the whistleblowers in the months before David Grush came out and how that was going to change the world?
Yep.
And he didn't actually have any firsthand information. Yeah, it is. It's I think we know the answer, Lou.
Yeah. Soon it will be more of the same. More of the same. You guys are going to be scrapping over this bullshit for the next till you're dead. Until you're dead, some of you. You're going to be
the UFO curse.
Yeah. Somebody put it to me the other day as it's like Jumanji. Once you roll the dice and you're in there, it's like, if you don't win the game, you're not getting out, and you got to wait there until somebody pulls you out of the game. You know, like it's one of those dimensions that you get slipped into, dude. And it's rare that people come back out of it and are able to live to tell the tale, so to speak, or correct their mistakes. You know, just like in the movie where that's exactly what Robin Williams' character did. You know, he corrected his mistakes and so yeah, I thought that was a good analogy to use for this discussion. But okay, let's play the rest of what good old Knapp's got to say.
15. He had a piece of it. I saw it.
He saw it.
In fact, he had a little experiment they did with what's called a cloud chamber, where they had, it looked to me like light. They had a piece of this 115 in this chamber. They put some smoke in it, and it seemed, and then had a beam of light through it, and the light bent.
The light bent.
Bob, at one point, when
that experiment also sounds like a very common experiment, like having a smoke chamber with light.
Oh, look, I built one of those. They're very cool.
Yeah,
and
okay, there you
element
go.
151 doesn't.
You don't need it. You don't need element 115.
Anything slightly radioactive, even actually not even radioactive, it'll do cool stuff just by the cosmic rays that are coming down.
Excellent.
When he thought he was going to die, had this piece of 115 in it was in a lead casing, in a disc-shaped casing. And
okay, so he even explains where he has the element 115 sitting in, a lead casing. So where is this lead casing? Why hasn't Bob Lazar been arrested for stealing government property? Like, why isn't the United States military coming down full force on both George Knapp and Bob Lazar, revealing these top secret technologies, it doesn't make it's stupid. It's stupid. And they built an empire off of this.
It's even more stupid than you could possibly imagine, right? Because if you look into the history of Skinwalker Ranch, they thought that they found, I forget who said it, but one of these people, we found element 115 on the ranch, somewhere, and it turned out to be, I forget what it was, like some sort of film torch equipment or something like that. It's just so ridiculous.
Okay, well, I mean, we could play the rest of this clip, I guess.
In front of a particle accelerator.
But I almost wonder if it's like, do we need to even listen to any more of this experiment? Like, it's already silly enough, dude. And honestly, the first 6 seconds are enough for me to go, okay, why aren't they screaming to go to Congress? If they've all seen the element 115 and it's sitting in a lead case, clearly Bob knows where it is. Why aren't we showing it?
Or any respectable scientist, any university.
The stupidest thing I've heard is, well, Bob has said that he doesn't like to talk about this, so therefore, why should he go to Congress? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Even if that was true, let's say Bob was nervous and he didn't want to get a migraine in the floor of Congress. Okay, fine. Give that lead casing to somebody else to take to Congress. I'm sure Jeremy Corbell has the pedigree and the gumption and the experience in front of a microphone and cameras to gladly take that case from you, Bob, and expose everybody the truth of your life and your story and all of the important work, and you could finally have your day in the sun. But you didn't pass a security check, and you're fucking lying.
Yeah. Anytime any of these stories come anywhere close to being able to actually negate something, do a test to be able to tell if it's true or false, suddenly everything disappears. Suddenly we can't do it.
Fails every
well, it's not fails.
time.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
That's failing. That's failing.
Sure.
That's a fucking fail. Like, if you are so confident, the confidence in which they speak about this, I saw it. I saw the element 115. How did you know it was element 115? Did you put it under a microscope? What lab test did you run on it to confirm it was element 115, number one? Number two, okay, let's just propose that this is true. Let's forget about that first part. Especially now with the laws that are in place. Why aren't you guys bringing that forward? Why aren't you telling us where this craft that crashed, or this craft that they built so large that it's immovable, cannot be moved, and they built a hangar over it? Dude, it's so stupid.
Tell us that single sensor, right? It's just
single sensor. It's always a carrot dangling in front of these cult members, and they take it every single time. You guys are doing all the work for them. They're on your backs, and they've got a carrot dangling in front of your face, and it's always just out of reach, and will always be out of reach for the rest of your existence. Always. It will always be out of reach. There was something that somebody had brought up here, or you had actually said, and God, I wanted to talk about it. Had to do, not with Grush. Gosh, I'm forgetting, man. But yeah, it was, anyway. Can't think of it. I have a feeling it'll pop in my brain here in a second. Anyway, yeah, it's so stupid, man. It doesn't make any sense. And every time we get so close, it's Lucy in the football.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's what, like even people like, Eric Weinstein and all, it's the same story over and over again. It's lots of really interesting stories. But when push comes to shove, they're just stories.
They're just stories.
Well, and also, like another thing is, we actually do kind of know what they think is credible evidence, right? Because we've seen the Navy videos that they think are, completely out there, non-prosaic things, which any, most rational analysis shows that it's not necessarily that. And then you have, the arts parts, the things, the TSA, recovered craft stuff. So, they've given us what they thought, what they presumably think is their best evidence, and that is all junk stuff that they, weird metal stuff that has no use or has a prosaic origin.
Well, one thing that Mick West also pointed out was in this new bill, they described now 6 observables, and that would be required and maybe even classified if they were found. And Mick's whole point was like, well, you guys have mentioned these observables before, and Arrow has found no proof of them. No proof. And we still haven't seen a video of any of these observables.
Well, we have though, right? Because the observables are so dumb too.
Right.
Low observability. Yeah. Right? Like, okay, there's things that are hard to see. Right? Like it's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Medium craft, there's things that can go in and out of the water. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. No, it doesn't hold any water. And what's hilarious is like all of the scientists, again, all of those NASA scientists are coming back with very prosaic explanations, and they're getting treated just like you're getting treated, just like I'm getting treated. They're getting the death threats. They're getting the harassment on Twitter, and
well, that's another thing, right? Is the whole NASA harassment, people harassing NASA and people like Dan Zetterstrom saying that, oh no, they're not talking about Twitter. They're talking about, people, their fellow scientists harassing them. But then on, the UAP, That UAP podcast or That UFO podcast, when they have one of the people from that NASA study, I forget who it was, but it was one of the Drake's son, Francis Drake's or not daughter, Nancy Drake, I think. But she was like, no, it was Twitter. People, attacking us relentlessly because we aren't saying that it's totally definitely aliens.
And it's not just Twitter. They find them on LinkedIn. They call their offices. They email them. They threaten them. Like this is like
it's horrible.
This is UAP mics. Like this is like these are the guys that again we're turning out to be right about. We're turning to be right about, and these guys are showing their true colors, and it's finally like I feel like a little bit of vindication if I'm being 100% honest, like that whole doxing thing was like for me like I told you,
yeah.
I told you that these guys. I told you that these guys were not good people. I told you that these guys were capable of anything, and here we go. They're leading and galvanizing people to hate, to threaten, to dox, to intimidate, and it's not working, guys. It's not working. Go bark up another tree, man, because this shit. It's old at this point. Like I'm not falling for it's a loud bark and no bite. A loud bark with no bite.
Yeah. No, I agree completely.
Anyway, rather, what have you been doing? Anything fun?
Oh yeah, I've been out vacationing in an undisclosed location somewhere in the United States for the last week or two, laying low and making sure no one was found my address and came to get me here in the last week or two. But no, I've been having some fun, hanging out with family and friends, enjoying the summer. I know I gotta get back to my weird devices and augmenting my own reality with cybernetics, but that's still coming.
Well, dude, I've got to send you this discussion, and maybe it's something we can talk about next time you're here with Avi Loeb's peers and sort of what Avi Loeb's peers are, because I think it's really important that we understand the motivations behind these organizations. Because if you have you looked at the board members for Americans for Safe Aerospace?
That's a Ryan Graves thing, right?
Uh-huh.
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, would you like me to read for you who's on that board? You're going to find this team very interesting. Okay, so we've got Alex Dietrich, David Fravor, Tim Gallaudet, Brian Bender, Avi Loeb, Christopher Mellon, Gary Nolan.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with all those names except Gary Nolan. I don't know what the hell he's doing in there. He's not. He has nothing to add. But
I think all of these names, especially after the things that we know about David Fravor specifically, I think all these people are compromised. All of them they're compromised in the sense that they have a bias. They're not in this because they're trying to find actual truth, because this for me more than anything is all about having a bias in the thinking when it comes to revealing information and truths and facts about this phenomena. And I think that's where, because I have a feeling when the president picks those 9 people, I have a feeling one of these names will end up on that list of 9. I promise you, don't be surprised if more than one of those people end up on that. Like if Gary Nolan and Travis Taylor or Ryan Graves or Alex Dietrich or David Fravor or Avi Loeb or Christopher Mellon end up on that gang of 9, I'll be very worrisome of it.
Yeah, no, I same thing we said at the start. It's all these people linked to the same group of people. It'd be a lot more credible if there were people that weren't linked to that same insular group that were saying these things. And yeah, it's just like, oh man, the UAP task force, the Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor, and they wouldn't tell us who those people are. It's just, oh man, it's frustrating.
Dude. Well, and yeah, it's just funny, and again, like it's when are we going to get a whistleblower that was actually written on the project, that actually had hands on the material, that actually saw the beings or dissected the like scientists and workers and janitors, the people that work at these facilities, like there's no way that you could keep it secret this long.
I mean, I'll tune in on the 26th for the congressional hearings. Maybe one of them will show up, but
do you know what time those
until we have evidence, it's hard
for us? Is it going to be another? Do you know what time have they announced the time for the start of that hearing?
I don't know if they set the time. They set the date, the 26th.
Okay. Well, hopefully. I mean, I don't know if you're interested. I know it's a Wednesday. So if you want to do a live stream, a watch party for that could be fun. But I mean, I know it's the middle of the work week. If you could make it happen,
I'll see what's up there. Yeah.
I mean, it could be, because the last one was at 7 a.m. our time. So that's probably before you start work. Maybe
it is, and I'm all right calling in off a day to
because this
indulge myself in my weird UFO hobby.
I think we should do it. I definitely am going to live stream that day, and I would love for you to be there because I think breaking down that congressional hearing is going to be important, to do it in a logical, rational way, because there's going to be a lot of post discussion about that, and might as well provide people with a more rational place to go to dissect and talk about that information. And let's see if we can get maybe even McGowan in on it, because he's also really good with those those types of legislative wording and things like that. So that could be cool. Rather be Squidding, dude. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun discussion.
Always a fun discussion, man. And stay safe out there. Don't let these guys intimidate you, man. Don't let them. We can't let them win. We can't let them win, right? And it's also going to be fun to lick their tears when this all crumbles.
Well, that's the thing. There will be no tears, because they have relentless faith in the stories that they've been told. Nothing will stop them.
Yeah, they will crucify themselves if need be. I mean, I know I was asked to crucify myself, basically. Fall on the sword. So who knows? Maybe they'll get to that point. Rather be Squidding. I'll see you the 26th. Is that when the hearings are?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, let's do it. You guys heard it here first. We're going to be covering the hearings, me and Rather, on the 26th. And dude, it's good to see your face. I'm glad that nobody's made you feel really unsafe, and that everything's fine for you. Life goes on.
I think I'll be all right. I'm frustrated and annoyed, but all right.
yeah. No, I definitely feel your frustration, and I'm frustrated for you. And yeah, you don't mess with Rather, because that's when you're gonna get. That's when the bull meet horns, sort of thing. All right, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Lou. Later.
Yep, no worries. All right, you guys. So that was Rather Be Squidding. What a killer show. What a killer dude. Rather, you gonna hang around backstage for a minute? I got some stuff to tell you. Or do you have to go? I see you typing something.
I can stick around for a minute or two.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? It's gonna take longer than a minute or two, but man, I got some fun stuff to tell you. I can only trust Rather with this information. But yeah, you're gonna get a big kick out of some of the stuff I got for you, buddy. All right, I'll talk to you later. Yeah, get out of here. All right,
later,
guys. What a killer show. I always love when Rather's here. Smash that like button. Hello, Renee Cruz. To what Renee Cruz says, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you can, guys, there's a Patreon link below. Please, if you like this content, if you're interested in seeing sort of coverage of the labor movement, please let us know in the comments below as well. You know, who do you think is the most important person to talk to on this kind of discussion? You know, I ran into some city leaders and some organizers at that event, so I want to see if we can get some folks on here to really have a deep discussion about this and talk about this big glaring problem amongst many other problems within this country that need attention, that just need attention. There's a lot of hardworking people out there that feel like they can't get a leg up. At every turn, there's something that always keeps them in the same vicious cycle, and it's not because they're not working hard, and it's not because they don't deserve it. So anyway, you guys, that was, again, I had a blast doing this show. Thank you guys for the donations that we got in the chat. I just want to say hi to B Baker, Cy Thirocall. Thank you for being here. Simon Fly, I see you. Eventide, Renee Cruz, Not Sure, Night Gazer, Swink McLeod, UAP, Chinese Balloon Lover, James Craig, Dana Shadell. Thank you all for being here. The show grows, and it seems like this Saturday show is right up your guys' alley. We've got some great audiences on Saturday, so I think we're gonna stick with the Saturday show. I think Saturday works really well for me, and because I'm still able to work earlier in the day and then come back and talk to you guys here on Saturdays, and yeah, everyone's here, so it's awesome. So I want to say hello to Y, want to say hello to SL, want to say hello to let's see here if I miss anybody. Michael Sekulov, interesting, he got an interesting comment there. Commander Dante the Grush Rush, Silly Goose, thank you for being here. Thrill Seeker 72, thank you for being here. Steve Long, if you guys haven't checked out the interview we did with Steve Long, go check it out. It's a really awesome conversation. I'm gonna reach out to Jack Brewer here in the next day or two and see if we can get Jack Brewer on here as well, because I think that'll be an awesome discussion. Justin S, thank you for being here. 5x5 News, thank you for being here. Carrie Spooky, thank you for being here. And checking us out on the Twitch channel, guys. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the Twitch channel, go over there and hit it, just in case we lose this platform for whatever reason. We do have a lot of haters that attack this channel relentlessly and try to get it canceled, so definitely check the link below and just go subscribe on Twitch, just in case. And I think that's everybody. I think I said hello to mostly everybody. Falls Garion, if it's your first time here, again, thank you all. Can't say it enough. I love you all. Have a great rest of your weekend. And yeah, we will see you very, very soon. Peace. I gotta end with this song. I love this jam. Love this jam. Again, Dr. Delight, if you guys haven't checked him out yet. Thanks, Renee, for the love. You guys, thank you, seriously. What a great show. What a great crowd. What a great guest. What a great discussion. I really feel like the channel's starting to hit a nice groove, you guys. I know we had the relaunch, we had the reset, but thank you guys so much for the patience. I cannot thank you guys enough. All right, y'all. Have a great weekend.